surprise. I have no beard today. Actually, I shaved on Sunday. So this is a couple days of growth coming back already. I gotta have this like up around, give me the illusion of a proper chin there. Yes, that's what I'm hearing, that I've shaved. Apparently, that's the consensus in the chat, is that I've shaved. I can remember when I first. Let me know if this sounds okay, guys. By the way, everybody, I know it's early to be asking those favors, but rather get rid of it sooner. Get it fixed sooner rather than later. I remember when I was in my, I don't know if it was my mid-30s, or maybe, I think it was mid to late 30s is when it was, that I could finally grow a beard that didn't look stupid, or at least I didn't think it looked stupid. It wasn't super patchy, and a lot of time when I was younger, when I tried to grow a beard, it just looked silly. But I can distinctly remember growing my first beard that actually seemed like a man's beard, I suppose. Nasha probably overcorrected. I probably overcorrected because I don't want to blow people's ears out. So I'll re-correct a little bit. But anyway, I grew my first real beard, and I went into work the next day, and everybody was basically like, "Oh my gosh, you look so much better with a beard," right? Which, if you think about it, like in a way, it's kind of an insult, right? Because it basically is saying the less of your face that you see, the better. But let me just get this going. So it's kind of like saying, yeah, wear that thing that covers up half of your face. It looks better when you cover up half of your face. And really, like from that first time that I grew a beard, 10 years ago now, it was, I rarely now go without it. Like even now, like I shaved it because every once in a while, either for a video, I'll want to shave it, or I just feel like I'm sick of it. Like sometimes it gets to me. It starts to feel dirty and weird. So, but even then, when I do that, I'll just shave it and then just let it grow back immediately. So maybe once a year, once every couple of years, I'll end up shaving. But anyway, so for now, I don't have a beard, and I probably won't have a beard for a couple of weeks. I don't know if y'all see Claude. Claude's joining us for the month of October, the rest of the month of October, because it's Halloween and all that stuff. No, that's not true. The male video game protagonists always have beards. Thank you, Pavi. Didn't think of that. Could have done that. I went a different direction. Anyway, welcome to another episode. This is episode 9 of Beyond the Double Red Doors. I went through and kind of checked it's almost 30 hours worth so far that has been recorded, which is crazy. Last week it got cut a little bit short because of the vice presidential debates. And kind of wish I hadn't done that, because that debate was a big dud. It was boring. Really boring. Not that this is any less boring. But so yeah, the cool thing about Claude is like you can actually see his. I'm gonna bring him forward. I'm gonna put him in the close-up cam here. Hold on. Don't be scared of him. Focus on the guy. Focus on this guy. Yeah. And I've made a couple videos with this guy. Nowhere near as many as I thought I was going to make. Turn around. I have to really... You listen to it. When I tell you to do something, you do it. All right? Oh, shoot. A little peek behind the curtain there. You can see the light I have at the base, illuminating him from below. I bought him originally thinking I would like have a character that was, this is in the early days. This is when I was like, I was still kind of trying to find my voice, I suppose, for how I was going to do ASMR. Well, Pazuzu's right here. Pazuzu was always here. He's always, whoops, he was looking at me. There, now he's looking at you. He's just as unhappy as he always looks, you know. Claude has a British accent. That's, you look at him and you might think, like, maybe he has like a Boston accent, or maybe he can't even enunciate words at all. But his elocution is excellent. He has a sort of a high British accent, sort of like you'd find in North London, not those dirty South Londoners. But anyway, when I got that mask, I thought I'd be using it a lot. I was like, oh, I can use it for videos. I can use it at Halloween with the kids and stuff. Problem is, it's too scary to use with my kids. My kids freak out when they see that thing. They don't want me in that, right? I show up, I'm going trick-or-treating with them with that thing on. No, it doesn't work. I gotta like just draw like a little black V and put in a couple of things and put a cape on and go blah, blah, blah. I can't, you know exactly how someone can look like an accent. Claude, no, Claude is not from Miami. He was from Los Angeles, but he was originally shipped to Miami. So there, yeah, now we're getting kind of Rick and Morty. Okay, let me just, do I say hi to everybody? Oh shoot, oh Chels, well let's just do this, right? So that's a reason, that's a cause, that's a reason to celebrate. So I'm glad that I'm not glad that you have to miss these if you want to see them, but I'm glad that you have a reason that is fulfilling to you, that you can't do it because of this other thing. So that's awesome. Claude, I've had Claude for 5 years. He's made of silicone, and if you look closely at him, you can see he has like many years of kind of like fuzziness on him. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few of them. I didn't realize he was doing one right at this moment. But yeah, fuck that guy. Excuse me. Oh boy. So I wanted to, in this episode, because the last one got cut off early, we didn't really get to go over what I wanted to talk about regarding margins of error and like how I've been thinking about how weird it is that maybe it's not weird. Maybe this isn't weird at all. Maybe this is just totally normal, and the fact that I was thinking about this is stupid. But it is really, it has come to be really strange to me the more I think about how narrow the margins are of like what we find good or livable or acceptable or tolerable in any way, right? And how it's, I guess it comes from that Anna Karenina. The first line in Anna Karenina. What's the first line in Anna Karenina? I gotta look it up because I don't want to get it wrong. Something about families are happy. Not all families are happy. Okay. And it's Tolstoy. Okay. But the line is, happy families are all alike, but every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. All right. One, I don't really believe that, right? But it does make an interesting point, which is that like in order for a family to be considered happy, in order for this sort of beneficial state that we would all like to achieve, there's a very narrow list of constraints, right? There's you have to there's a very short list of things that have to be fulfilled in order for a family to be happy, whereas like there are a million ways in which you can be unhappy. And the reason, at least the rationale behind this, and also, wait, I think Socrates actually, in fact, I know it because I looked this up, but Socrates said something like this too, that I think was closer to the truth. I should have looked this up before. It's something about there's like a million ways to be evil, but there are very few ways to actually be good. Like the righteous path is very narrow, right? And the evil path there's millions of ways to be. Was it Socrates or Aristotle also? I get them confused. Lots of ways to be evil. Does somebody else know this particular phrase? Well, okay, regardless, it's something like what I just said, which is, it's if you want to be good, you're walking the narrow way, and that's right, that's biblical, right? The narrow way is biblical. Man, I gotta do more research with the narrow way. That's a biblical thing, right? It's also a Pink Floyd song, apparently. Okay, that's not what I was referring to, though. Right, Matthew 7:13, right? Small is the gate and narrow the way that leads to life, and few are those who find it. Obviously, I'm an atheist, but I think the Bible can be, a good read if you read it in the right context. And oh, damn, I forgot my mic light. I had to have my mic light on. I was really rushed up until doing this here. I usually have a light here to kind of illuminate the microphone. Just makes it look a little more pro. Yeah, I have been like, it's nuts. Like now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lights. I am being lit right now by 8 lights, which is stupid. It's just stupid. Like God, when I have a little tiny light here, to make because what's more interesting, that or that? I think that's more interesting, right? I got to have lights underlight this guy. I got to make sure that I have a pretty strong key light here because I need to close down the aperture on my lens a bit because I've noticed that in some of my earlier episodes, the focus is a little soft. So the lens that I have on this camera here, if I can find its friend, it might not be in this room. Anyway, the lens that I have on that camera right now is capable of a 0.9 aperture. It's a Voigtlander 42.5 millimeter, f/0.9. So it's very fast, very narrow depth of field. And because of that, I was able to not light very much. But the downside was every time I looked at it afterwards, I was like, well, it looks okay, but it doesn't look as sharp as I think it should. Like it should look sharper than it does. And I'm not sure why. And the reason is, because when you're, even if you're bang on right in the very narrow focus field when you're at f/0.9, it's still a little bit fuzzy because it's just okay, look, here's what we're going to do now. Okay. We all know how lenses and apertures work. Is that correct? I'm going to assume that everybody has some. This is the wrong notebook. Oh, dear. Okay, this is the right notebook. I'm gonna go on my first tangent. So if you have a tangent in your bingo cards, maybe this is a tangent I've been on before. I can't imagine that I haven't. People often wonder. Oh, look at this. This is, and I'm sure I've shown this before. But I know I have a little diagram thing here. This is cute. I like to look at this and kind of remember, a week, couple of months ago, this is my attempt at trying to come up with a logo before handing it over to a professional airbrussadora who I then maligned her work by taking it into Adobe Character Studio and putting their default mouth, animated mouth on it, which just looks ridiculous, but I couldn't help it. It was so funny. It was funny to me. But you gotta take the artist into account. Like we were talking about death of the artist, right? Death of the author. Especially when the artist is someone you know and is doing things for you, I pay for art. I don't try and, I'm not one of those people that will try and be like, hey, can you do this for exposure? But I never know what real value, I don't know how to put a value on art. And then I don't know if the person who's doing the art is giving me the real price, or maybe they feel like they have to give a lower price or something. I don't know. I thought you know what I actually think, now that I think of this? I actually think I drew this in my work notebook, which I shouldn't do. Oh, wait, I want to show you guys something really funny. I thought it was really funny. Check this out. So when I was watching my son the other day, my son is very much into a SpongeBob, right? So I will draw like SpongeBob a lot, and SpongeBob characters for him a lot. And whatever, he likes it. But I thought it was really cool that I drew. Where is this? Yeah, okay. Right here. So I drew the plankton on the left, and then he came in and he drew the plankton on the right, and he just turned 6. I thought that was pretty good. And I especially liked, I was questioning him. I was saying, as he drew it, I was like, you're giving him sharp teeth. Plankton doesn't have sharp teeth. And he said, yeah, but plankton's evil. So, if you have sharp teeth, you are therefore evil. But I thought it was so cute. He tried, he was more copying what I did, which is not like a great plankton. The only reason I can draw SpongeBob characters a little bit is because I worked on the game. So there was a period, it's the only reason I can play chess at all is because I worked on a chess game for like 6 months of my life. So I was playing chess every day for 6 months, and I kind of kept doing it. Same thing with SpongeBob. It's the only reason I can draw anything remotely SpongeBob-y, because and this is, what are the odds? I just opened it to the very page that I took that picture from. Oops. And I did a little Patrick at the bottom. He didn't really follow me there. Oh, and there's some work stuff written on the other side of that. So I got to be careful exposing company secrets. Wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, it's funny. If you look through my work notebook, you'll see I don't know why I draw. I mean, well, I do know why, but you'd think I would get tired of it. But I just draw SpongeBob a lot. Yeah, and this is like, well, I can't show this. Sorry, can't show it. But I draw SpongeBob a lot. Anyway, I thought that was cute. I think he's cute. I don't care what you all think, because he's my son. All right, I'm gonna go through the question or the comments here for a second and see what's going on. Photography talk. Right. I agree with this. Wow, Bob. Why a gnome, though? Like, so you're talking about like a gnome who relies on magic and who knows magic, but when it comes to resolving an image through a lens, has no idea. Oh, hey, Leah, how are you doing? I haven't gotten that script from you. I'm supposed to be doing something with Leah on October 18th, which I think is a Sunday. I haven't gotten the script. Is this an Aphex Twin reference? I don't know. Don't show the spider. Well, don't say don't show the spider. It's really hard. When someone says don't show the spider, it's really hard because it's like one little mouse movement. All I have to do is just like press a little button and the spider will show up. Oh, see, exactly, Flaglow. Yeah. I'm resisting. I'm resisting. And he just turned 6, by the way. He just turned 6 a couple weeks ago. Let's go through. You love the SpongeBob games. Which one, my guy? A few, but one that they just remade. Lights, Camera, Pants. They just remade it and just re-released it, and basically just redid it from the ground up. But it's just like a generic third-person platformer. Well, no, but this was at the time when I was still kind of transitioning from being an art director to a game designer. It was right around the time we were doing SpongeBob. I wasn't good. I was a good enough pixel artist that when in the 90s, in the late 90s, when all you had to do, when you had like a 64 by 64 pixel area, 16 colors, you didn't have to be that great of an artist to actually do pixel art, right? I realized I'm not denigrating people who do pixel art. I realized it has become an art form. And if you compare like the pixel art that people are doing now compared to the pixel art that was like actually done in games back then, it's so much better now. Like they've really elevated the form. But back then, you just didn't have to be that great. So as technology evolved, my ability did not. And I was fortunate in that I had the foresight to see that I was not going to ever be a good computer artist. I did get into Maya and 3 Studio Max and did a bunch of 3D games. I could do that stuff. I could do like UV unwrapping and like, paint grass textures that went into rock textures and, do all that kind of crap and, do cars, and when it was all about efficiency, like trying to fit, an entire UV map for the diffuse channel on a gaming character on one 256 by 256 texture, and trying to find like enough space to like map out all your polygons and display them correctly. When there were a lot of limitations, I was able to do okay. But the more those limitations lifted, the more it became obvious that I'm not a real artist or anything. So I was at that point sort of looking to the future and kind of being like, well, I'm going to be out of a job if I don't do something else. And I enjoyed writing, so I started doing game design. Luckily, the company I was at was small enough, and I was one of the partners, that I could just be like, hey, I want to design a game. So I designed a couple of SpongeBob games and then some Agatha Christie games. So if you ever happen to play like some point and click adventure Agatha Christie murder mystery games, if you play one to the end, you will hear a piece of music that sounds a lot like Pioneer's Lash, because I just took that shit and I put it and I took it back because I did it for the game. We had like 6 people working on the game, right? So it's not like, so I was doing like music and design and stuff, and but it was actually published in the game, so I don't think I own. In fact, I'm sure I don't own the rights to that piece of music. That is the theme to Pioneer's Lash. I did change it, but I didn't change it that much. So if you, here, I'll show you where. I'll show you what. Let's just see, right? If you ever happen to, it was on the PC and the Wii. Yeah, so if you ever have the fortune / misfortune of playing this game, the music may sound familiar to you because I reused some of it, or just kind of changed it enough that I thought that it would not be enforceable, because I wrote the music for the game and did the game design and stuff. But it's not a very good game, I'll be honest with you, because there were only a few of us working on it, right? I did work on Civilization. That's what I'm talking about, like the pixel art. Civilization 2. So, and then Civilization 2, the Outer Worlds, I think it was called. This feels so self-indulgent. No, it wasn't Outer Worlds. What am I? Civilization 2. How can I not remember? Well, because it was 20 fucking years ago. That's why I can't remember it. Fantastic. Civilization 2, Fantastic Worlds. So if you would... I mean, come on. This is... Wow. I mean, this is embarrassing. All right, so here's the level of when I was doing like just pixel art. Let's see. I did this thing. That's all I did that I see here. But I did most of the characters, or not most. There were like 3 or 4 other people, so a good percentage of the Civ 2 and Civ 2 Fantastic Worlds pixel art. Anyway, talking a lot about me, and I'm just kind of going with it because I want to just yap. Yeah, there's a crime. Monica Jessup gets killed. Oh yeah, the Adventure Company. It was one of those things. The first game that I designed was called SpongeBob Employee of the Month, and the magazine that was like really a big deal then was Computer Gaming World, and they gave it. It came in like second place for Adventure Game of the Year, and the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences gave it runner-up for Family Game of the Year. First game I ever designed, and I was like, whoa, like first game I ever designed. All right, got all this stuff, got this minor acclaim for such a small game. So few people working on it got this acclaim. Wait till, I start doing more games and getting more awards. Never got another one. Worked on like 30 or 40 games. Look, everybody, y'all know my name. Y'all know like who I am, right? So if you go to, at this point, it just doesn't matter, right? There's even a picture of me. It's a terrible picture, but the list is Christ, I can't believe it. I just feel like I've been alive way too long when, I'll just show, this isn't all of it. This is just what I can capture in one snapshot, right? That's me, 2005. That's right. 15 years ago. Looking like a fool. Probably still have that shirt. Worked on a lot of hidden object games. And those would be like 3 months worth of work, right? Anyway, it goes down beyond this. I've worked on a lot more games than that. I don't even think Elder Scrolls is on that. No, yeah, there's Elder Scrolls Online, right? But anyway. Okay, let me get to the end here of the... I do, and it's Nixon, which is not a fortunate last name. It's, if you look at the etymology of it, it means son of Satan, son of Nick, old Nick, Satan. At least that's how I like to interpret it. I'm not related to the former president, although it has been pointed out that I do share some physical resemblance to him. My nose, my brow, and probably in a few years, my jowls. If you go to IMDb, you'll only see a subset of games because IMDb, like, they didn't really take games as like valid form of entertainment until I want to say around like 2001, 2002, something like that. So if you go to IMDb, you'll see a few things, but if you go to Moby Games, they track every actual game. Yeah. Well, have you seen pictures of Richard Nixon when he was younger? That's the question that I would put to you. Leah, I got your messages, in case you were wondering. Well, let's look at... Sorry, man. I don't know. I mean, before his... I guess what I'm saying is imagine with a skinnier face, like just slice that kind of jowl part out. I think he's actually much better looking than I am when he was younger. I mean, some people age differently, right? But if he had a thinner face, look, he's smoldering in that picture. I'd hang out with some tricky dick looking like that. But anyway, I don't think that I'm related to him. I don't think so. Oh yeah, did you like that? I really enjoyed working on that. And that game, they gave us like all the assets, and so we had a lot to work with and a lot to play with, and it was a lot of fun. Joe Biden's your cousin. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Why would I take offense to that? It's because of the teeth, right? I had someone on the last video I did was like, "Oh, I didn't know that you were missing a tooth." I'm not missing a tooth. I just I have crooked teeth, especially my lower teeth. So sometimes, especially if I have like a super bright light, which I often do, like if you look at my videos, like I have a kind of MO for like having this super harsh light hit me from one side. And what will happen is it will highlight one tooth, and the one that's further back, it will just miss, and that tooth will just be in complete shadow. And it looks like there's no tooth there. Okay, you want a little tech war story? William Shatner was involved. He came to the studio multiple times, and we had meetings with him and talked to him. Went to this place called Joe Stonecrab's in Miami with him. He was there with his wife, Norva. It was the wife of his who drowned a few years later in their swimming pool. And I remember thinking, like, this, she seemed like such a strong woman. And I'm not saying anything, right? But doesn't seem like the kind of person who would just drown in their own swimming pool. But maybe she was very unhappy. I don't know. I don't want to disparage William Shatner. He was okay. He was not super controlling or anything. I mean, the game was terrible and the books were terrible. But it was all right. And we went to dinner, and he had, and this was a long time ago. This is 30 years ago, and he had hearing aids in both ears. Or almost, I'm sorry, this is like 25 years ago, something like that. I remember he went to the bathroom, and somebody came over to me and was like, "Hey, is that Captain Kirk?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's Captain Kirk. Yeah, sitting with me. You know, we're just having dinner, you know, whatever." And then his wife, yeah. It's actually a horror. I don't want to make fun of it. It's a really, really tragic story. But she was always with him, like always. He never once showed up without her. And she was like, she had to be 6 feet tall, and just like, I just remember being like, oh my gosh, it's like an Amazonian, and you know, beautiful and like super, super strong. Yeah, kind of. I'm shocked, honestly. Like, I'm shocked that Shatner outlived like Leonard Nimoy. Although Leonard Nimoy smoked a lot, but Shatner was not like, even back then, he was not, it's not like he ate well. Like, I remember, like, it seemed like he ate a lot. And I remember thinking, wow, he should be watching, you know, what he's eating. See here if I can dig something up. I'm sure I cannot. Is this it? Oh God, y'all remember Derek Smart? Jesus. That guy thought he was the shit. People probably don't know who Derek Smart is. But anyway. Let's not go any further down that particular rabbit hole. Was she an actress? I want to know her name, actually, because I want to say it was like Nora or Nor. Was it Noreen? Yeah, Noreen. For some reason, I thought it was Noreen. But yeah, that was her. That was her. She was with him all the time. Yeah, it's really tragic. Yeah, so that's just it. And even back then, like, it seemed like he had a little bit of that kind of bloat, kind of alcohol-induced bloat face, you know? Yeah, right? That would be... I mean, is any of this slander? I don't really think it is. It's just... What else do I got here? Oh, okay. So if y'all remember, there's this huge Trump Pence sign in my neighborhood. It's about 2 blocks away from my house, and I have to pass it every time I go to pick up the kids. It really gets on my nerves. So much so that I had a can of blue spray paint, which I had in this room, but I moved it out of this room. Oh, good night, Space Can. But I was really considering if I should go spray paint the sign. And then about a week ago, a little less than a week ago, I drove by the sign. I wasn't like doing recon on it or anything. I wasn't trying to scout the place out or anything like that. I was just driving by, and I wanted to see what was going on there, and how it was, what the deal was. And check it out. Somebody got there before me and ripped it. It's actually like a board, like a cardboard. And somebody just kind of ripped it off so they got to it before. I did not do this. I would admit to this, or I would be sneaky about saying, I'm not saying I didn't do this, and I'm not saying I did do this, but this is the way it looks now, and it wasn't like that before, right? I would say, I would do something like that, but no, I didn't do this. Right, exactly. I wanted to do it, the rump sign, and hi, Jessica. But somebody got to it before me, so I don't know. I was super paranoid. I was like, there's probably cameras or this, they showed they have the razor blades along the edges of the signs. I thought there'd be something where I would have to plan my routes and get in and get out really quick, sort of use the face mask thing as a way of being incognito. Yeah, I don't think it's a cut. I think they literally just grabbed it and pulled, and maybe tried to pull the whole sign off, and then it just kind of snapped down the middle. You didn't do it. What, Wob? You're questioning that? Not only was, oh my God, it's your fault. Dude, I am not a liar. Anymore. At one point I didn't really care about honesty. Well, I also did notice this is gloss. Wasn't paying that much attention. But it is paint plus primer ultra cover, so it would have done a really good job, but it would have been shiny. So maybe it's better that somebody tore it. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I've never done it. I might not have gotten the nerve. I lost a lot of my nerve the day I turned 18. Before I was 18, I was doing a lot of stupid shit because I knew I could get away with it, and a lot of that was also white privilege, right? I knew I wouldn't get in trouble, or I would get a slap on the wrist, and I was a dick. I was definitely a dick when I was young, which implies I'm not a dick now, and I'm not saying that that's the case. But oh, sweet pea, come on. I'm naked faced, and I need to use this in order to give the illusion of a chin. If you go here, I need like the string, you know? That string. If I shaved here would help, right? Um, because it would give more distinction, more of a line there. That doesn't really exist right now. Sweet Pea, I just shaved because I was just kind of sick of it. I'm letting it grow back. What does this mean, Wabab? Inflict terror in a stream. See, that's the rub, right? Is I also have lights positioned in a very particular way in order to cast a kind of shadow here, right? There, look at that. Huh? Not so great now. When I was younger, people used to call me Beaky Buzzard. I think I said this already, but I think it was Buzzard. Was it Beaky Buzzard? Yeah, Beaky Buzzard. Because the kind of size of my nose and the I was like, pretty lanky, and there, see, that was me. Oh, nope. Anyway, you know what? You're right, Emmy. Like, there's been nothing but tangent. I really wasn't that prepared tonight. You know what? I did want to read. I want to do this for the rest of October. Is read a short, slightly scary story each time. And for tonight, the one that I wanted to read, which I had up and ready, and I closed the window because I was looking for, oh no, I didn't. The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar, which is an Edgar Allan Poe story. And while we're at it, if we're going to go into that at some point, oops, not that one. Where is why don't we talk a little bit about why Poe is a better author than H.P. Lovecraft. First of all, is this even worth debating? Like, is there anybody that feels that H.P. Lovecraft was a better writer than Edgar Allan Poe? It's okay. You're allowed to be wrong. Everyone is entitled to be wrong. Everyone is entitled to my opinion. Leah, are you saying you think Lovecraft is a better writer than Edgar Allan Poe? I guess I should have phrased that differently. If you think H.P. Lovecraft was a better writer than Edgar Allan Poe, say yes. I'll wait. Oh. So does anybody, I guess this might not be, okay. Maybe, I guess this is a universal. There are a lot of like Lovecraft fanboys, especially fanboys, fangirls too, but a lot of Lovecraft fanboys. Pavi, right on. I don't know that he was a shit, well, it depends what you mean by shit writer, but um, he was a lot about atmosphere, and he had some really cool ideas. And obviously, like, the sort of Tolkien-esque universe world building that he did was fantastic. But when it came to like story, a lot of Lovecraft stories are basically just, I went to the place and there was a thing and I could not understand the thing, but it was horrible and it destroyed my very soul. The end. And doesn't really, like, there's not really that much plot. There's a lot of atmosphere, and there's a lot of build up, and there's a lot of like suspense and tension. And a lot of movies kind of ape that thing, but they rarely have, like, none of Lovecraft stories have the payoff of like Cask of Amontillado, or at this point it's like you can't even say the Telltale Heart, right? It's just too ingrained in everybody's subconsciousness. But man, like that, if you try and look at that story with the without the sort of jaded perspective that the thousands and thousands of horror writers since and movies since and everyone has done, man, what a kicker that story gives you, right? Like, that is one of those endings that just, if you read it with an open mind, and admittedly, like, I read it in grade school, right? And I was just like, oh, that was neat, okay, that was cool. The beating of his hideous heart, neat, right? But then later, and that's something else, right? Like, you can take almost at random, you can take lines from Poe stories and just take a line, and it will just be beautiful. Like, it will just be, a fitting ending line. He was really good at endings, right? And I don't think Lovecraft was very good at endings. Yeah, the black cat. Oh God. Well, don't search Google. In the Mouth of Madness. You're talking about the Sam Neill, John Carpenter film? What's the deal with Lovecraft's cat? I don't. Oh. Yeah, well, Lovecraft was also a horrible racist, right? But Poe probably was too. He just wasn't quite as overt about it. But I'm trying to judge them based on the merit of their work. Oh, Adrian, where did Adrian go? Adrian, I didn't see Adrian's goodbye. Oh, Adrian Black. Bye. Thank you very much. Yeah, quote the Raven Nevermore. I mean, he combined his skills as a poet with the economy of phrase of like a really good writer and the ability to tell a story. And it's very rare that you get like all of those things in one person, right? Like, we talked about this a little bit last week. Like, Agatha Christie could tell a story, right? But she couldn't really write very well. You don't read Agatha Christie and you're never blown away by something that she said. Like, she's nothing. It's not really prose even, right? Like, it doesn't come close to poetry, and it almost doesn't really even. I don't know. I mean, it depends, I guess, how you define prose, but. Yeah. And what's weird about this, though, is my favorite book of Tolkien is The Hobbit. I could just pick up and reread The Hobbit, or just start reading it from any point. Or at least I could. I probably can't really anymore. Like, I'm pretty over it since, the inundation, all the movies and all that kind of stuff. But The Hobbit was the one that relied the least on this sort of complex interplay between, the writers of all the different regions and the history of everything that was going on. It had the least world building of the rest of the books that he wrote. I'm not counting the similarian, whatever, however you pronounce it. But it's the most readable and the most joyful. Like it's just sort of infectiously joyful. Wait, so you're talking about rewatching In the Mouth of Madness? So I rewatched In the Mouth of Madness recently, and it was one of my, I think when I was young, it was one of my favorite movies. I like John Carpenter a lot. Obviously, The Thing and Halloween and Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China. He did an anthology called Body Bags that I actually thought was really good. And I think that's on Netflix right now. But if you look at it, you might think it would be horrible. And to be fair, a couple of the stories in it are horrible. But there's one that's just about a woman at a gas station that is, I think, tells there's the perfect sort of a little suspense horror story in 20 minutes. But In the Mouth of Madness, there are parts of it that I really like. I like all of the Lovecraft references. It references, probably my favorite Lovecraft story is Pickman's Model, specifically because it eschews that whole kind of crazy world building thing, and it is literally just about, why does this guy paint or sculpt these insane things? What's going on with that? And it has a build up and it has a very satisfying conclusion, and it doesn't just hand wave and go, oh, cosmic horror, right? I've read I think everything of Lovecraft, so I don't remember all of it, but yeah, this is true. So if you don't want to contribute to although you're still popularizing, you're still furthering their legend. Well, no, you personally can enjoy his work, yeah. But if I were to read it, not that I have any. I was enthralled by the first 3 Game of Thrones books. Those were required reading at Cinemax Bethesda, because that was the kind of magic that the Elder Scrolls was trying to go for. They didn't want to go for the super high fantasy. They wanted, when you saw a dragon, the same kind of ethos, right? When you see a dragon, it's a big fucking deal, right? They're not just all over the place, and there's not just magic everywhere, right? It's significant, even to the people within that world. It's the difference between high and low fantasy. Let me go through all these. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. Yeah, I liked Body Bags a lot. Is Cats of Dunbar, this is the one where the cats eat the villagers? I'll have to reread that. He is very dry. He's like, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, right? I love Mary Shelley. Like um, but she doesn't have the kind of oeuvre that Lovecraft did, right? But she was a much better writer. Sorry, I'm just like going through the comments now and just like checking. Okay, I don't think I've ever read this or heard of it. Wait a minute. No, I'm thinking of Ray Russell's. Wait a minute. The Sardonicus trilogy? That's what I'm thinking of. Who wrote Mr. Sardonicus? Yeah, based on the Ray Russell novel. That's a really good horror short story if you're into that. Ray Russell, he wrote some pulp and some crap, but I think the one book he wrote called like Haunted Castles, or it's a anthology of short stories, has the Sardonicus trilogy. It's really good. Well, yeah. Ursula Le Guin. I'm a huge fan of Ursula Le Guin. It's more dystopian, more sci-fi. She did do some fantasy. Where are the female, apart from Mary Shelley, horror writers? I know, like when it comes to mysteries, like I feel like P.D. James took Agatha Christie's model and perfected it. It's not scary though, but really well written. But I would be interested in that. Oh my God, The Dark is Rising. So, The Dark is Rising is. I can recite to you right now. When the dark comes rising, 6 shall turn it back, 3 from the circle, 3 from the track. Wood, bronze, iron, water, fire, stone. 5 will return and 1 go alone. How do I know that? I read those books when I was in like 4th grade, and they just stuck with me. Like I just remember, first of all, like just the name, The Dark is Rising. And I remember the cover was just like this figure, this kind of shadowy figure on a horse, but in like the mist. That got to me. And the fact that it's not like I've gone back and read those books a lot. In fact, I don't think I have them. I know it was like The Dark is Rising, Silver on the Tree, The Green Witch. I can even remember Power from the Green Witch, Lost Beneath the Sea, All Shall Find the Light at Last, Silver on the Tree. It's so weird to me that I remember that, because that is from the last time I read those lines was in the 80s, and they stuck with me. So yeah, Dark is Rising, Susan Cooper. Let's see. Yeah, we went over this. We actually read this and talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's right here. Charlotte Perkins Gilman. But she doesn't really have I was underwhelmed by this, actually. So I don't know that I'd recommend it. But yeah, keep those recommendations coming. Oh, of course. Yeah, how ridiculous. Oh my God. So I was actually going to talk about a book I finished reading recently called Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. And it was a good book, but it was a direct rip-off of We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, which is a great, great atmospheric short story. And everything that Shirley Jackson wrote is really well character developed or absolutely horrifying or both, and really well written. And there was recently a movie that came out, I think VOD, on her, that was okay, but it was still worth watching, like to see her process, or an interpretation of what her process would be. But yeah, Shirley Jackson, incredible. How did I not think of that? Shirley Jackson, right on. Right, she's right up there with I can't think of. I mean, she's right up there with. God, I always get The Haunting at Hill House and Richard Matheson. Sorry, right up there with Richard Matheson. So okay, but we have sort of a consensus that Poe was a better writer than Lovecraft. It wasn't the argument that I imagined that it would be. Everybody seems to be in agreement about that. So, let's see, what else can we talk about? Oh, this was on my Instagram, but I recently purchased a beanbag. So, at the beginning of quarantine, I purchased a pull-up bar, and then like 6 months in, I purchased a beanbag, and my pull-up bar is outside this door, and I hang shirts on it. So, oh yeah, Leah, I watched this too. How basically, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was, was gay horror, intentional or otherwise, definitely intentional, right? I'm going to disagree with you, Anu. I don't think Lovecraft was way better at world building or atmosphere or immersive details. He was maybe better at world building. I don't think he was better at atmosphere or immersive details. When it came to like the details, Poe was right on there. Why Sweet Pea? Why do they give you bad memories? Or should you not talk about that? Is it something if it's something you want to talk about? Yeah, this was very sad. Oops. He obviously he didn't know like what he was signing up for. It seemed like things weren't explained to him, and I don't know, man. I mean, when I was a kid, like all that went over my head, right? I remember watching Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 and being like, this isn't scary. Freddy is like cracking jokes all the time now. Why? In the first one, he was quite nefarious, and now they've kind of turned him into a clown, but I didn't really pick up on the subtext. Or maybe I did, and I just like subconsciously picked up on it. But there is such a huge tonal shift between Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and Nightmare on Elm Street 2 that it's interesting to see. I disagree with, it depends on the beanbag. Gosh. What's I don't really make a distinction between those two things. Poe is definitely well. Lovecraft is very psychological as well, but Poe is definitely like um, getting into people's minds and this sort of subtle nuance of horror. It's more nuanced horror, whereas Lovecraft is more like giant magic portals. It's one of the problems I had with Lovecraft Country, right? Which was, I'm not going to go off about Lovecraft Country again because the final episode aired, and literally, like, if you kept a scorecard, I liked half the episodes and I hated half the episodes. And to be frank, the episodes that I hated were the ones that were the most traditionally Lovecraftian, where it was get the magic piece of the orrery to keep the portal open so that we can learn the language of Adam and read the book of magic and get the magic spell, and like all of that crap just made me want to, I just thought it was awful. But then when it went into like these sort of more nuanced stories within the characters themselves in a more Poe way, in my opinion, right? That's when I actually was riveted. Um, the episode about the house, the spirits in the house, that was a bottle episode. You don't need to watch any of the other episodes. You can just watch that one. The episode about the skin shifter, even though that kind of ties into the main plot, like that one main episode, brilliant. Really, really liked it. So it's one of those few things where, like, even though he really was up and down, I still would recommend it just because the good ones were so good that it's worth putting up with the ones that I didn't like. How about this dude? Anybody watch Channel Zero? Are we all just we're talking about beanbags now? Don't do it, Flaglow. Do not do it. Waterbeds are the worst thing in the world. Wow, you vomited from the Devil's Rejects. Devil's Rejects is very brutal. It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre-y. Why you got so many teeth? This picture is from a horror anthology show called Channel Zero. Okay, I'll lose the picture. Sorry, I'll replace it with. Why don't I replace it with Goth Kamala Harris? But there is a show called Channel Zero, and it's kind of like American Horror Story, I guess. It's like each season has its own theme and explores its own kind of start and end story. They don't share actors across seasons. I don't think. They might, but I don't think they do. But that's another show where, like, season 1 is okay. Season 2 is pretty good. There's a season called The No End House that's pretty good. What will break your back? No, I agree with this. Waterbeds are the worst for backs. It is like the support is horrible. It is just not a thing that you want to lie down on. Never again. The mother of my son, my first real girlfriend, had a waterbed. And this was, way back when you're supposed to think waterbeds are really cool, and like when you're 17, which is how old we were. And I even hated it back then. I was like, why do people think this is like a good thing? I don't see. Well, now a coke bed is a different matter altogether. Yeah, coke beds, yes, because when you got to keep it, well, I don't know. It's hard once you pop open a Coke. Like I said, you only get like this Coke's dead, long dead. It's been open an hour. I'm not touching that thing. You kidding me? Once the carbonation's gone, you're just drinking stirred maple syrup in water. Anyway. All right. So, if you're looking for a movie to watch, something that I'm thinking about doing, I've actually been thinking about this for a really long time, and it's going to take a fair amount of work. I don't know if it's worth it, but I want to, I've always been so obsessed with this scene in Paris, Texas. So if you have not seen the movie Paris, Texas, by Wim Wenders or Wim Wenders, it's about, it starts in medias res, and there's like a man who's played by Harry Dean Stanton. He's in some John Carpenter movies. He's coming out of the desert in a fugue state. And you kind of learn his story, how he kind of lost his memory, and you learn his story throughout this kind of road movie that ends with him reuniting with his ex-wife in this scene that you're seeing right here. And it's one of those, I guess it's like I don't know if these things actually exist in this particular form, but it's like, one-way glass, and you pay and you can talk to a woman and she will maybe remove her clothes or something like that. That's the implication here. In my younger years, I did visit strip clubs. I never saw anything like this, so I don't know if this is like an atavism from the 70s or the early 80s or something. But anyway, ever since I first saw this movie, I've been obsessed with this scene, and I hate collab videos that use a green screen. However, this would be the perfect video to do as a collab with a green screen, because for the entire scene, they are talking to each other via this phone, which goes to a speaker in this kind of fake room that she's in. And it's a heartbreaking scene because she doesn't know who he is. And he starts to tell the story. He's like, I'm going to tell you a story. And she's like, okay. And then he starts telling the story, and it's their story. And as she starts to catch on, it is really, really brutal. And so Jane, the woman, is played by Nastasia Kinski. Amazing actor. But so I'm thinking of trying to recreate this scene and maybe do a collab with somebody on it. There's no, this is there's nothing sexual about this scene at all. This is a heartbreaking scene. Or the movie, the entire movie, I think is just completely heartbreaking. So I don't know. I'm thinking about building this. I already have some elements of it. And then trying to getting somebody to do the other part. The movie is called Paris, Texas. Paris, Texas. I don't have any wild strip club stories. I've only been to a couple of strip clubs. I was very, very young, and they depressed me. All right, so I'm going to take a yes, Leah. Sam Shepard wrote Paris, Texas. Yes. Apparently, he didn't write the end. He had to go do another movie, and he left Wim Wenders to write the end, and that's why the end is a little bit meh. Kind of fizzles out a little bit. But yes, it was him. So I need to go on stand by for a moment here, and I'll be back in a minute. But please notice that, wait, shoot, I don't think I set this up right, so I'm going to have to try it. And then let's see if this works. You know what? I'm just going to do it like this. Watch this. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to put this up, and then I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to mute me, and then the only thing that you need to remember is that you have to, and then it's, got it. Yes, Wings of Desire, so far away, so close, until the end of the world, all good, the Wenders movies. I'll be right back. Come on, I replaced the music that everybody hated. Brushing the mic. Whoops. Whoa, what is that? Oh, shit. That was a mistake. That was a mistake. Okay. Yes, this is a Trump quote. Yeah. Lots of little quality of life improvements made in the last week. I shaved my beard. I have a sort of standardized frame size here for different little graphics we can look at to talk about the new iPhones, right? Like, they went back to the iPhone 5 straight edge, which was awesome. They never should have lost. Was my favorite iPhone. We got Claude in the background. We have new hold music. I don't know if you noticed, but the logo movie is now scaled to the proper size used to be a slightly different aspect ratio, and so would not be the right size when it played. So swearing softly into the mic. Everything falls. The volume of the new music is a tad too loud. Well, that's easily fixable. How's that? We just have that going. And I mean, whatever music is there, you're gonna get sick of it eventually, right? Who used what quote? Wait, I don't know what quote. No, you're wrong. The iPhone 5 is the best iPhone. From a physical design standpoint, the iPhone 5 is the best iPhone. And there's no room for debate there. And that's why I like the new iPhones, because they went back to the physical design of the iPhone. Yeah, well, what I want is actually something to hang in the back there with the real logo on it. Yeah. That's what I want. But maybe at some point in the not so near future, maybe. Oh, here's something else that I noticed after the fact. So the last video I did, which I don't know what's going on. Let's go ahead. You can go ahead and mark this on the bingo card too. But the past 3 videos that I posted have been 10 of 10, right? Meaning they've been the lowest viewed videos. So I don't know what's going on, people. I'm not getting many views on the channel anymore. I don't care. I mean, I care, but I don't care enough to let it stop me. But I did notice afterwards that the thumbnail that I did for the latest video was like almost identical to a thumbnail I did 3 years ago, to the point that I'm holding a camera in like the same way. So I brought it up and I was looking at it and I was like, oh my God, like the composition of this is identical. The only difference is different camera, so you can like tell the different color science, different lighting setups, right? And more of my new lighting setup, obviously, in the new one. So this is the one that the one on the left is the one that I just did. And the one on the right is the one from like 3 years ago. And you can't see it here. And man, this is like this feels very self-aggrandizing. I don't know. You can't see it here, but I'm holding a camera in both, right? And I actually dyed my hair brown for this because I was going for a different look for a video around that time. Yes, you're right. It was for the atypical ASMR video, which, like, personally is one of my favorite videos. It didn't do very well, but it's one of my favorites. But I didn't remember the screenshot. I didn't remember the thumbnail for it. I must have somehow, like, in my brain somewhere. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. So why don't we move on to a little Halloween story that I could read you all, in case you haven't already read it, or it's been a while since you've read it. There's some interesting facts about this. When it was first released, Poe sort of released it without calling attention to the fact that it was fiction. So there was some what is my Mac trying to do here? Oh my God, it's doing something cool, but I don't want it to do it now. Like I have my iPad here, and I'm scrolling through my notes, and so it's here. Just gave me a little alert, asking me to pull the note if I want to pull the notes in to my iMac Pro. Yes, I love this artwork. It's like a woodcut. Has a kind of, interesting. And for background music, I figure just do the party noise thing. Make sure everybody's awake. Do that. Just be like, hey, wake the fuck up. Or can. It's all kinds of ways to torture people. But anyway, so when the story was released, he didn't really make it that obvious that it was fiction. And a lot of people took it as fact because, back then they had fake news, Not like, what accents are we going to get, Ramona? Take a guess. First of all, Poe, resident of Baltimore. Baltimore represent, Nasha. If you're ever in Baltimore, go to the Poe Museum. It's actually kind of pathetic. But what's so weird is like, even being like a giant Poe fan that I was when I moved to Baltimore, and even before then, like, it never occurred to me that they called their football team the Ravens because of the Edgar Allan Poe story. Because I never would have thought to put a football team and Edgar Allan Poe together, like in any conceptual way, right? So I totally went over my head for the longest time that the Baltimore Ravens were called the Baltimore Ravens because of Edgar Allan Poe. In hindsight, it's, oh shit, this thing is stuck. In hindsight, it's really obvious, but it is kind of true. Any vuvuzelas? Look, sports are not my thing. Yeah. This is what I'm imagining, is whoever agreed to this also didn't know. Like, I'm thinking that they were probably like, you know what? Let's just pitch it as the Ravens, right? And not say, we just won't say that that has anything to do with a writer, especially like a horror writer or anything like that. Because ravens are cool. Like, ravens rip apart like animals, and they live a long time, and they can live 30 years, and they don't have the cool collective name that crows do, but yeah, I do wonder how that went. Everybody, quick, Ravens. Okay, let's see. This is why Leah is this is the improv comedy ability coming through. But this is what I'm saying, girl, right? So that's why I was surprised that they would be able to do that. Hey, Maddie, good to see you. I'm surprised they were able to push that through. They did. I'm very proud. Very proud to have lived in Baltimore for several years before realizing that their football team was named for Edgar Allan Poe. And especially, can we do something here? Let's see what we can do. Let's do a little bit of a, okay, we're gonna try this. This is doomed to fail. Okay. You're getting turned off. You're staying on. You're going off. Or maybe we could turn you on and make you like red. Let's make you red. Okay. So we got you. Oh, look at the red on Claude back there. That looks good. Yeah. Okay, so we got some red on Claude. So that helps there. And you, let's see, what should we do with you? Can we make you, let's add a little more red here. A little more red there to the front. But maybe bring it down, no, or about there, something like that. All right, that's good. And you go bye-bye. And there we are. We've transformed into it's a little too red now, isn't it? Let's fix that. I know this is riveting for everyone involved. Let's see if we just bring that down a little bit. Okay, that's a little better, right? And maybe just not quite. Can we do something like that's a little more subtle, I think. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go with this, and then let's kill. Should we kill this? No, it doesn't really make a difference, does it? Last thing, I promise. It may turn out that we just want this to stay exactly what it is, but just in case, let's see. Do you want to make it like velvety purple, like that? How's that? How's that? The levels as a whole are a bit too quiet. Well, I'm not getting that. I'm seeing it as getting close to clipping. And I don't want to clip, but I'll go up one more. Okay, so are you saying like right now when I'm whispering that this is not acceptable level-wise? The background is a pretty blue, and now it's gone. All right, tell you what. Hey, Grace, how are you doing? I'm just going to move ahead. Yeah, Claude I think looks good in this light. I almost want to, you know what, I think I'm going to kill this. I gotta kill all these because it's a stack. Whoops, not that one. Stupid idiot. There, now we have like more. How's that? All right, hopefully this volume is okay, because this is what I'm going to be. I shaved everything, my mustache and my beard. Good night, Pavi. Good night, Maddie, or Pavi, whichever one of you is going. So this is... How am I going to... Give me a moment here. The facts in the case of M. Valdemar. Of course, I shall not pretend to consider it any matter for wonder that the extraordinary case of M. Valdemar has excited discussion. It would have been a miracle had it not, especially under the circumstances. Through the desire of all parties concerned to keep the affair from the public, at least for the present, or until we have had farther opportunities for investigation, through our endeavors to effect this, a garbled or exaggerated account made its way into society and became the source for many unpleasant misrepresentations, and, very naturally, a great deal of disbelief. It is now rendered necessary that I give the facts as far as I comprehend them myself. They are, succinctly, these. You know what? Let's do this a little bit. Just a touch. They are, succinctly, these. My attention for the last 3 years had been repeatedly drawn to the subject of mesmerism. And about 9 months ago, it occurred to me quite suddenly that in the series of experiments made hitherto, there had been a very remarkable and most unaccountable omission. Good night, Fleglo. I hope you have a good evening. No person had yet been mesmerized in articulo mortis, that is to say, when they're about to die. It remained to be seen, first, whether in such condition there existed in the patient any susceptibility to the magnetic influence. Secondly, whether, if any existed, it was impaired or increased by the condition. And thirdly, to what extent, or for how long a period, the encroachments of death might be arrested by the process. Yes, if the echo or the sibilance is too much, please let me know. There were, of course, other points to be ascertained, but these most excited my curiosity, the last in especial, from the immensely important character of its consequences. In looking around me for some subject by whose means I might test these particulars, I was brought to think of my friend, M. Ernest Valdemar, the well-known compiler of the Bibliotheca Forensica, and author, under the nom de plume of Issachar Marx, of the Polish versions of Wallenstein and Gargantua. M. Valdemar. Don't be mentioning the spider. Talking about the spider. If you're talking about the spider, you get the spider. What's that? Give him the spider. Anyway, to sum up to this point, there is a mesmerist who is most interested to try and hypnotize a man who is in the process of dying. Right? That's where we are right now. That's where things are at this moment. And the subject of this experiment is M. Valdemar, who has resided principally at Harlem, New York, since the year 1839, is, or was, particularly noticeable for the extreme spareness of his person, his lower limbs much resembling those of John Randolph, and also for the whiteness of his whiskers in violent contrast to the blackness of his hair, the latter, in consequence, being very generally mistaken for a wig, Who was it that earlier said that Poe was not good at details? Huh? What? His temperament was markedly nervous, and rendered him a good subject for mesmeric experiment. On the 2 or 3 occasions I had put him to sleep with little difficulty, but was disappointed in the other results which his peculiar constitution had naturally led me to anticipate. His will was at no period positively or thoroughly under my control, and in regard to clairvoyance, I could accomplish with him nothing to be relied upon. I always attributed my failure at these points to the disordered state of his health. For some months previous to my becoming acquainted with him, his physicians had declared him in a confirmed phthisis. It was his custom, indeed, to speak calmly of his approaching dissolution, as of a matter neither to be avoided nor regretted. Just in case, phthisis is tuberculosis or tuberculotic disease. When the ideas to which I have alluded first occurred to me, it was, of course, very natural that I should think of M. Valdemar. I knew the steady philosophy of the man too well to apprehend any scruples from him, and he had no relatives in America who would be likely to interfere. I spoke to him frankly upon the subject, and to my surprise, his interest seemed vividly excited. I say to my surprise, for although he had always yielded his person freely to my experiments, he had never before given me any tokens of sympathy with what I did. Sorry. His holes look strange. Can we get Pazuzu in on that lighting at all? I guess probably not. How's this camera interpreting all this? Ooh, that's pretty good too. Because it gives like it's sort of accentuating the shadow. You may as well come now. D and F are agreed that I cannot hold out beyond tomorrow midnight, and I think they have hit the time very nearly. I received this note within half an hour after it was written, and in 15 minutes more I was in the dying man's chamber. I had not seen him for 10 days, and was appalled by the fearful alteration. Hello. Which the brief interval had wrought in him. His face wore a leaden hue. I have to concentrate, or I'll mess this up. His face wore a leaden hue. The eyes were utterly lustreless, and the emaciation was so extreme that the skin had been broken through by the cheekbones. His expectoration was excessive. That's some gross shit. The pulse was barely perceptible. He retained, nevertheless, in a very remarkable manner, both his mental power and a certain degree of physical strength. He spoke with distinctness, took some palliative medicines without aid, and, when I entered the room, was occupied in penciling memoranda in a pocket book. He was propped up in the bed by pillows. Doctors D and F were in attendance. Why am I doing an English accent when Poe was from Baltimore? Oh, that's probably why I don't. Makes me look older, is what you're saying there. And that's fine. After pressing Valdemar's hand, I took these gentlemen aside and obtained from them a minute account of the patient's condition. The left lung had been for 18 months in a semi-osseous or cartilaginous state, and was, of course, entirely useless for all purposes of vitality. The right, in its upper portion, was also partially, if not thoroughly, ossified, while the lower region was merely a mass of purulent tubercles running one into the other. Interesting, the amount of research that Poe did on this. I think this is because his wife had tuberculosis. So that's why he happens to know a lot about it. Wow, man. Thanks, I guess. Gosh. No, this isn't that kind of live stream. I'm sorry. Several extensive perforations existed, and at one point, permanent adhesion to the ribs had taken place. These appearances in the right lobe were of comparatively recent date. The ossification had proceeded with very unusual rapidity. No sign of it had been discovered a month before, and the adhesion had only been observed during the 3 previous days. Independently of the phthisis, the patient was suspected of aneurysm of the aorta, but on this point the osseous symptoms rendered an exact diagnosis impossible. It was the opinion of both physicians that M. Valdemar would die about midnight on the morrow, Sunday. It was then 7 o'clock on Saturday evening. On quitting the invalid's bedside to hold conversation with myself, Doctors D and F had bidden him a final farewell. It had not been their intention to return, but at my request, they agreed to look in on the patient about 10 the next night. When they had gone, I spoke freely with M. Valdemar on the subject of his approaching dissolution. I like the phrase dissolution for death. It's clever. I'm sure it was common then, but not so much now. So if I'm not speaking in an English accent, I'm not reading from the text. And you'll know when I'm speaking. No, it doesn't really get highlighted very well. Brains. Anyway, so we have a mesmerist who has come to the house of someone who is terminally ill, scheduled to die. The best that his physicians can say is by midnight the next night. When they had gone, I spoke freely with M. Valdemar on the subject of his approaching dissolution, as well as more particularly of the experiment proposed. He still professed himself quite willing, and even anxious to have it made. Yeah. Yes. And now, I don't want to break this up or anything, but it's bugging me. It is bugging me that light is so a little too red, right? Oh, kind of like it like that. Like it blends my face into the background a little bit. All right. I'm going to stop. All right. Good night. 2742. So this dying man is willing to take part in this experiment with this mesmerist. I would think if I were approaching death, I would probably not be so amenable to anything. I want to say hi to Joyce, a new person. Everybody, please make Joyce feel welcome from Australia. That's not the way to make an Australian feel welcome, is to, hello, mate. That's not right. I'm not going to do a Crocodile Dundee voice. I'm sorry, Joyce. I'll stop now and go back to the mid-Atlantic voice for the remainder of this. I need to get through. I'm butchering Poe by putting these terrible breaks in the middle. All right. A male and a female nurse were in attendance, but I did not feel myself altogether at liberty to engage in the task of this character with no more reliable witnesses than these people, in case of sudden accident, might prove. I therefore postponed operations until about 8 the next night. And I gotta say, right, like, if the doctor said he's gonna die at midnight the next night, and you're like, yeah, okay, let's, I'll come back at, oh my God, he's right. Bob is right. Like, you can really kind of see my skull. Oh, fuck me. Rise up lights. That's a great trick. Rise up lights. And then I've lost it again. All right. All right, I'm going to ignore chat. Like, this story's only like 10 more minutes long. So I'm going to ignore chat for the next 10 minutes and just finish the story. And then I'll go back to talking about the chat. Okay. Here we go. But I do think it's cutting it close. If they say he's going to die at midnight and you're like, oh, well, I'll come back at 8. It's a little close. All right. It had been my design, originally, to wait for the physicians, but I was induced to proceed first by the urgent entreaties of M. Valdemar, and secondly by my conviction that I had not a moment to lose, as he was evidently sinking fast. Mr. L. was so kind as to accede to my desire that he would take notes for all that occurred, and it is from his memoranda that what I now have to relate is, for the most part, either condensed or copied verbatim. It wanted about 5 minutes of 8 when, taking the patient's hand, I begged him to state, as distinctly as he could, to Mr. L., whether he, M. Valdemar, was entirely willing that I should make the experiment of mesmerizing him in his then condition. He replied feebly, yet quite audibly, yes, I wish to be, I fear you have... Yes. Oh, this is weird. I think this is a mistake. But anyway, he replied feebly, yet quite audibly, yes, I wish to be. I fear you may have deferred it too long. While he spoke thus, I commenced the passes which I had already found most effectual in subduing him. He was evidently influenced with the first lateral stroke of my hand across his forehead, but although I exerted all my powers, no farther perceptible effect was induced until some minutes after 10 o'clock, when Doctors D and F called, according to appointment. I thought it was supposed to be 8. I explained to them, in a few words, what I designed, and as they opposed no objection, saying that the patient was already in the death agony, I proceeded without hesitation, exchanging, however, the lateral passes for downward ones, and directing my gaze entirely into the right eye of the sufferer. By this time his pulse was imperceptible, and his breathing was stertorous, and at intervals of half a minute. This condition was nearly unaltered for a quarter of an hour. At the expiration of this period, however, a natural, though a very deep sigh, escaped the bosom of the dying man, and the stertorous breathing ceased. That is to say, its stertorousness was no longer apparent. The intervals were undiminished. The patient's extremities were of an icy coldness. At 5 minutes before 11, I perceived unequivocal signs of the mesmeric influence. The glassy roll of the eye was changed for that expression of uneasy inward examination, which is never seen except in cases of sleep-waking, and which is quite impossible to mistake. With a few rapid lateral passes, I made the lids quiver, as in incipient sleep, and with a few more, I closed them altogether. I was not satisfied, however, with this, but continued the manipulations vigorously, and with the fullest exertion of the will, until I had completely stiffened the limbs of the slumberer. After placing them in a seemingly easy position, the legs were at full length, the arms very nearly so, and reposed on the bed at a moderate distance from the loin. The head was very slightly elevated. When I had accomplished this, it was fully midnight, and I requested the gentlemen present to examine M. Valdemar's condition. After a few experiments, they admitted him to be an unusually perfect state of mesmeric trance. The curiosity of both the physicians was greatly excited. Dr. D resolved at once to remain with the patient all night, while Dr. F took leave with a promise to return at daybreak. So Dr. F wasn't quite as into it, I guess. Mr. L and the nurses all remained. We left M. Valdemar every time I see M. Valdemar, I think of Wilmer Valderrama. And that, I shouldn't have said that. Please don't let that get into your head. In no way should M. Valdemar resemble Fez from that 70s show. It will just destroy your whole kind of mental image of what's going on here. As I approached M. Valdemar, I made a kind of half-effort to influence his right arm in pursuit of my own, as I passed the latter gently to and fro above his person. In such experiments with this patient had never perfectly succeeded before, and assuredly I had little thought of succeeding now. But to my astonishment, his arm very readily, although feebly, followed every direction I assigned it with mine. I determined to hazard a few words of conversation. "Fez," I said, "are you asleep?" He made no answer, but I perceived a tremor about the lips, and was thus induced to repeat the question again and again. At its third repetition, his whole frame was agitated. But, that's like a perfect, right there. If it were a horror movie, it would be the third time, right? Like, look in the mirror, nothing. Look in the mirror, nothing. Look in the mirror, bam, right? At its third repetition, his whole frame was agitated by a very slight shivering. The eyelids unclosed themselves so far as to display a white line of the bowl. The lips moved sluggishly, and from between them, in a barely audible whisper, issued the words, "Yes, asleep now. Do not wake me. Let me die so." I here felt the limbs and found them rigid as ever. The right arm, as before, obeyed the direction of my hand. I questioned the sleep-waker again. Do you still feel pain in the breast, Valdemar? The answer was now immediate, but even less audible than before. No pain. I am dying. I did not think it advisable to disturb him farther just then, and nothing more was said or done until the arrival of Dr. F., who came a little before sunrise, and expressed unbounded astonishment at finding the patient still alive. After feeling the pulse and applying a mirror to the lips, he requested me speak to the sleepwalker again. I did so, saying, Valdemar, do you still sleep? As before, some minutes elapsed ere a reply was made, and during the interval the dying man seemed to be collecting his energies to speak. At my fourth repetition of the question, he said very faintly, almost inaudibly, Yes, still asleep, dying. It was now the opinion, or rather the wish, of the physicians that Valdemar should be suffered to remain undisturbed in his present apparently tranquil condition until death should supervene. And this, it was generally agreed, must now take place within a few minutes. I concluded, however, to speak to him once more, and merely repeated my previous question. Yeah, I shouldn't have mentioned Fez. I'm sorry. While I spoke, there came a marked change over the countenance of the sleepwaker. The eyes rolled themselves slowly open, the pupils disappearing upwardly. The eyes rolled... Yes, they did that thing again. The skin generally assumed a cadaverous hue, much like this one, resembling not so much parchment as white paper, and the circular hectic spots, which hitherto had been strongly defined in the center of each cheek, went out at once. I use this expression because the suddenness of their departure put me in mind of nothing so much as the extinguishment of a candle by a puff of the breath. The upper lip, at the same time, writhed itself away from the teeth, which it had previously covered completely, while the lower jaw fell with an audible jerk, leaving the mouth widely extended and disclosing in full view the swollen, blackened tongue. I presume that no member of the party then present had been unaccustomed to deathbed horrors, but so hideous beyond conception was the appearance of Valdemar at this moment, that there was a general shrinking back from the region of the bed. I now feel I have reached a point of this narrative at which every reader will be startled into positive disbelief. It is my business, however, simply to proceed. There was no longer the faintest sign of vitality in Valdemar, and concluding him to be dead, we were consigning him to the charge of the nurses, when a strong vibratory motion was observed in the tongue. All right, Valdemar. This continued for perhaps a minute. At the expiration of this period, there issued from the distended and motionless jaws a voice, such as it would be madness in me to attempt describing. There are indeed 2 or 3 epithets which might be considered as applicable to it in part. I might say, for example, that the sound was harsh and broken and hollow. But the hideous whole is, indescribable, for the simple reason that no similar sounds had ever jarred upon the ear of humanity. It's nothing like a good vibratory motion. Sorry. Totally inappropriate. There were two particulars, nevertheless, which I thought then, and still think, might fairly be stated as characteristic of the intonation, as well as adapted to convey some idea of its unearthly peculiarity. In the first place, the voice seemed to reach our ears, at least mine, from a vast distance, or from some deep cavern within the earth. In the second place, it impressed me, I fear indeed, that it will be impossible to make myself comprehended, as gelatinous or glutinous matters impress the sense of touch. I have spoken both of sound and of voice. I mean to say that the sound was one of distinct, of even wonderfully, thrillingly distinct, syllabification. M. Valdemar spoke, obviously in reply to the question I had propounded to him a few moments before. I had asked him, it will be remembered, if he still slept. He said now, yes. No. I have been sleeping, and now I am dead. No person present even affected to deny or attempted to repress the unutterable, shuddering horror which these few words, thus uttered, were so well calculated to convey. Mr. L., the student, swooned. The nurses immediately left the chamber, for they were women type and thus not able to withstand such disgusting things. And they could not be induced to return. That's sarcasm, by the way. I don't think that in the slightest, obviously. My own impressions I would not pretend to render intelligible to the reader. For nearly an hour we busied ourselves silently, without the utterance of a word, in endeavors to revive Mr. L., who had swooned, and was a Mr., and swooned, so bite it. When he came to himself, we addressed ourselves again to the investigation of M. Valdemar's condition. It remained in all respects as I had last described it, with the exception that the mirror no longer afforded evidence of respiration. An attempt to draw blood from the arm failed. I should mention, too, that this limb was no farther subject to my will. I endeavored in vain to make it follow the direction of my hand. The only real indication, indeed, of the mesmeric influence was now found in the was now found in the vibratory movement of the tongue whenever I addressed M. Valdemar a question. He seemed to be making an effort to reply, but had no longer sufficient volition. To queries put to him by any other person than myself, he seemed utterly insensible, although I endeavored to place each member of the company in mesmeric rapport with him. I believe I have now related all that is necessary to an understanding of the sleepwaker's state at this epoch. Other nurses were procured, and at 10 o'clock I left the house in company with the two physicians and Mr. L. In the afternoon we all called again to see the patient. his condition remained precisely the same. We had now some discussion as to the propriety and feasibility of awakening him, but we had little difficulty in agreeing that no good purpose would be served by so doing. It was evident that, so far, death, or what is usually termed death, had, indeed, been arrested by the mesmeric process. It seemed clear to all of us that to awaken M. Valdemar would be merely to ensure his instant, or at least speedy, dissolution. I wasn't expecting this. I actually reread the story prior to tonight, just for like length purposes, and it didn't strike me until I was just reading it. Oh boy. Hi, Tessa. All right, we're actually almost done, so I don't want to. We're almost at the denouement. From this period until the close of last week, an interval of nearly 7 months, 7 months, 7 months, we continued to make daily calls at M. Valdemar's house, accompanied now and then by medical and other friends. All this time, the sleeper-waker remained exactly as I have last described him. The nurse's attentions were continual. It was on Friday last that we finally resolved to make the experiment of awakening, or attempting to awaken him, and it is the perhaps unfortunate result of this experiment which has given rise to so much discussion in private circles, too much of what I cannot help thinking unwarranted popular feeling. For the purpose of relieving M. Valdemar from the mesmeric trance, I made use of the customary passes. These for a time were unsuccessful. The first indication of revival was afforded by a partial descent of the iris. It was observed as especially remarkable that this lowering of the pupil was accompanied by the profuse outflowing of a yellowish ichor from beneath the lids, of a pungent and highly offensive odor. A pungent and highly offensive odor. It was now suggested that I should attempt to influence the patient's arm, as heretofore. I made the attempt and failed. Dr. F. then intimated a desire to have me put a question, and I did so as follows. M. Valdemar, can you explain to us what are your feelings or wishes now? Remember, this is after 7 months being suspended in this trance. There was an instant return of the hectic circles on the cheeks. The tongue quivered, or rather rolled violently in the mouth, although the jaws and lips remained as rigid as before. And at length the same hideous voice, which I have already described, broke forth. For God's sake, quick, quick, put me to sleep, or quick, waken me, quick. I say to you that I am dead. I was thoroughly unnerved, and for an instant remained undecided what to do. At first, I made an endeavor to recompose the patient, but, failing in this through total abeyance of the will, I retraced my steps and as earnestly struggled to awaken him. In this attempt, I soon saw that I should be successful. that I should be successful, or at least I soon fancied that my success would be complete, and I am sure that all in the room were prepared to see the patient awaken. For what really occurred, however, it is quite impossible that any human being could have been prepared. As I rapidly made the mesmeric passes, amid ejaculations of dead, dead, absolutely bursting from the tongue, and not the lips, of the sufferer, his whole frame at once, within the space of a single minute, or even less, shrunk, crumbled, absolutely rotted away beneath my hands. Upon the bed, before that whole company, there lay a nearly liquid mass of loathsome, of detestable putridity. The end. And there we have it. Kill the reverb. So they put him in a trance, left him that way for 7 months. And when they awakened him, he immediately went through dissolution. Definitely something that's been used and or seen since then. I think it's a good story. I like the the mockumentary style of it, and vibrating tongue and ejaculations aside, I think it's pretty creepy and Halloweeny. Yes, yeah, absolutely right. It's telling me my stream quality was just lowered, so I don't know if we're going to see like a lag there or something. Oh, that's okay, Joyce. As long as you didn't disclose anything you weren't supposed to disclose. So, 2.5 hours. And this is true. Mr. Sardonicus definitely does. And it's part of, it definitely feeds into what makes it terrifying. Yes, Grace, it is. Thank you. I did it for the Psychops video, the last video I did on the regular channel. It depends on the song. I think two of them were songs that, so a few nights ago I was unable to sleep and it was like 1 a.m. and so I just kind of streamed singing, and some of them, most of the songs were Damien Rice and Red House Painters / Mark Kozolek, but a couple of them were ones that I'd done. Thank you, Tessa. I had been sitting on it for a while and wasn't sure what form to bring it forward in. I had originally written it as a screenplay. I'd actually originally written it as a video for Paul and I to do together. In the story that it ended up happening, it was a couple. The difference would have been that, like, in the original version, it was two men away on like a hunting trip, and they discover in this cabin they rented, they discover this camera, same camera that was in the story, right? And much by the same methods, they kind of determine what the use of the camera is. And there is, through some like, sort of misdirection, a reason why one of the people needed to use the other person's phone, and discovered that the other person's wife had been having an affair with him. And then the end of it was, the guy, one of the guys playing with the camera and like looking into the mirror with the camera, and then seeing the other person come in with one of the hunting rifles, and then seeing their number be number one, and then it just kind of cutting there before hearing a shot or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah, there's like it's not even a latent power. I was going to say there's a latent power, but it's just like it's just a power, right? It is what it is. I know we didn't really talk about like this stuff that was on the agenda or whatever, and it doesn't bother me. Like if it bothers people, if they're like, oh, there was something that you said you were going to talk about and you didn't, that I'm fine, acquiescing there. But if people don't care, I kind of like the more free form. It's good to have something to fall back on, right? If stuff is especially quiet, it's good to have something to fall back on to talk about. But I don't know that I need necessarily to have these, to worry about the content as much as I do, right? Like the whole point of tonight was to talk about, or the original intent of tonight was to talk about how a lot of these sort of old models of, I was kind of like looking at it more economically than culturally, but like the way subscription models have kind of creeped back in. They used to be very popular for a lot of things, right? Like there was the Columbia Music House, right? Where you would pay 2 cents and you'd get a tape sent to you, and then every month you'd pay a couple bucks. You could pick, a new tape or a CD or whatever it was. And that's what a mortgage is too, right? You're essentially leasing your house. But it was trying to look at it through the lens of like, one of the reasons that we're so reluctant to do that is this deep-seated need we have to like be able to own a physical thing. In part, maybe something we could pass down after we die, but also something that isn't reliant on anything, and we can actually say it belongs to us for no other reason than to say it belongs to us. This is true, Grace. I went. One of my most memorable first dates. It's not a horror movie, but I went to see this in the theater on a first date, not knowing anything about the movie or what to expect, but it was Requiem for a Dream. And you can imagine there's some uncomfortable moments there. Columbia House is still after you. Yeah. My credit got ruined when I was young. And you know what? You just wait 6 years. You're all good. I don't know if this is meant to be a joke. You don't have much stock in owning things. Yeah, some directed chaos, like herding cats. What are you talking about here, Levy? Whoops, why is this not? Yeah, dead ringers. Gynecological apparatus for operating on mutant women. You know, like I've wanted to do a dead ringers RP for the longest time. I have the red mask and I have all the red surgical stuff. But I've wanted to get the right props in order to do it correctly, and can't really find them. Strangely enough, you would think that someone would have made these props. Even like old surgical equipment doesn't come close to that stuff. Donnie Darko, that's okay though, right? I'm trying to remember how weird that movie gets. Oh, not familiar with Dead Ringers. Okay. Well, so Dead Ringers is a David Cronenberg movie about twin gynecologists, and they have some very disturbing thoughts about how they treat women, and they have literally, they call them like, yeah, instruments for operating on mutant women. Here's an image of there's like a bone saw here, but the ones that are, this isn't actually showing the ones from the movie that are really kind of cool looking. Yeah, stuff like this. This is just straight out. I just wanted really creepy surgical instruments. Getting those, like, you look for those on eBay, like just old surgical tools. I have some, I have a couple of sets that I've used in videos before, but I'm kind of tired of them. But they're not cheap, but they're interesting. Like, they're just interesting to see, like, even like the clamps they used to use when they were performing tonsillectomies, stuff that you would think would be pretty simple, but yeah, not. Oh yeah, but come on. But the problem is, it's Jeremy Irons, right? He's you got this going on, How can you? Here, I'll put him right over Claude. So I have this stuff. But I often make, I often go like halfway in on a video and then I end up not doing it. So we talked about, I think last week we were talking about, I had recorded like just video of fans, and I wanted to just kind of put it up and say this is my OnlyFans video, and it was just ASMR with fans. AS Matt R had the same idea and did it, but even before him, Made in France ASMR had done it. So the only reason that I was even doing it was, or wanted to do it, was for the joke aspect of it, and because it had been done not just once but twice. Oh, you ran out of juice. This little guy ran out of juice. Oh well. Oh, good night, Xava. Let me be sure there's nothing that I missed that I wanted to cover here. Got the inset graphic. We did the bean bags. I'm sitting in bean bags lately. Kamala's still cool. If you haven't seen Paris, Texas, see Paris, Texas. My son drew Plankton. Poe is better than Lovecraft. The new iPhones are actually something that I'm probably going to get because I cannot stand the smooth bevel edges of the 6s and beyond. I made a thumbnail for a video that was almost identical, unintentionally identical to a thumbnail I had made 3 years ago. Channel 0, if you haven't seen Channel 0, Season 2, No End House is pretty good. The Trump-Pence sign that I was thinking of possibly, maybe, theoretically in Minecraft, spray painting already got vandalized. And if you mesmerize someone on the brink of death and leave them that way for months and then wake them up, they will turn into a puddle of goo, but their tongue will vibrate. Does anybody have any questions? Anything they want to ask? What? You're kidding me. So I know of the Muter Museum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But what do you mean when you say original papers? Man, Jeremy Irons, I'd probably let him do a lot of stuff to me. I was so ashamed when Watchmen came out, and he appears sans shirt in Watchmen, and the guy's like 70 something and still looks like a superhero. Yeah. It's hard for me to get super excited about that game. I gotta be honest with you. As a streaming game, anyway, it's a lot of reading. I'm not really making much headway in the game itself. Well, Levy, those have got to be worth a lot of money. Or you're just saying copies of them? What? 90s version of it? I didn't know there was a 90s version. I know there was one that came out in the aughts. And then there was, of course, the James Mason version, which I seem to do James Mason without meaning to sometimes. This has got to be like you got to be careful how you got to capitalize the N and the L there. That's crazy. I've been to Lancaster County a few times, obviously, to visit, to see like Amish or Pennsylvania Dutch farms, and there's like this weird train that runs through Lancaster County that you can ride on, but I don't remember that museum. I'll have to look it up because I really, really like the Muter in Philadelphia. And yeah, it is like sort of Yeah, Jeremy Irons. Was that the 90s? I think you're wrong. Oh, you're right. Why did I think that was? I guess, yeah, I thought this was the later one. But wait, there was another one that I think after this. Oh, Adrian Lynn. So, yeah, he does some weird stuff. Oh, hey, Grace. How are you doing? It's good to see you. This background was specifically to read a Poe story. Lanch party. Yeah, at the start of the stream, it was different looking than this. Oh man, he does. He's something else. Him and I don't know why Julian Sands never launched into the stratosphere. You know, Julian Sands in like A Room with a View, and we're talking about, you know, attractive men's. There's Pazuzu, underlit. Just gonna pretend like I don't notice that he's poking his head up, having a look. Oh my gosh, look. Indigo, I love your new picture. Unfortunately, Indigo, you came sort of right as we were wrapping up here. It's been almost 3 hours, but it's really good to see Grace and Grace, double Grace. Yeah. Oh, so I had been talking. It's funny that Grace came by because I had been talking about was this, right? This scene in Paris, Texas, and wanting to do a collab with somebody being Jane in this shot. However, like I actually DM'd Grace about that, and I didn't think about it until afterwards. I was like, oh, this is actually like a weird thing, because technically, like, what Jane is doing here is, you know, I mean, it's basically the equivalent of like a strip or fetish club or something like that. But the scene itself, and even so, the first scene is a little bit weird, but it's the second scene that I'm thinking about, where he just tells her the story of their life, and she realizes that it's him because she doesn't know it's him, and that's the scene that I'm talking about. But I didn't realize, like, when I made the suggestion that it's like a weird thing, because of the context. What's actually said in the scene itself is not, there's nothing weird about it. It's tragic. It's just like this heartbreaking sort of story of like this person trying to find redemption and trying to do it by bringing a mother and a child back together. Oh, watched it. Yeah, so hopefully it wasn't like afterwards I was kind of like, oh no, what if, like, that could have been seen as like inappropriate? I don't know. And even if you watched it and like it, you very likely people would still be like, well, that is cool, or I like it, but it's not really something that I would want to, you know, do. So that's that kind of thing. It's just it's the cinematography of this shot that was really, really took me. And the performances, and Nastasia Kinski is just like amazing, right? Uhtred, I didn't even see Uhtred. I've watched a little bit of it. Yeah, people have said the cult leader, maybe do an RP of the cult leader. Possibly. But I'm not that into it. Although I really like Garth Ennis, who did Preacher, you know. I'm a fan of Garth Ennis. I'm a fan of Preacher. I'm not really a fan of what Seth Rogen did with Preacher. But that was like one of the few comics that I really got into when I was younger. Stuff like Preacher and Hate and Ranma 1/2. You know. But anyway, everybody, thank you for coming out. I think I'm going to wrap up because I'm tired. And I'm only going to show a second and then come back. That's it. Just like one little tiny bit of Spider. And I will see you all next week. I'm sure I will stream again between now and then, whether it's Disco Elysium or just another sort of spontaneous late stream. Thank you all. I could not pull off Homelander Uhtred. It's very kind, but no way I could do that. Oops. It's strange to me how much that guy looks like Michael Fassbender. Like, I thought it was him, like with some weird prosthetic stuff going on. Okay, so yeah, hope everyone has a good night and sleeps well, and it's October. Don't be scared. Pazuzu will protect you. Oh yes, good night, Grace. Thank you for coming by. I always appreciate it. I always appreciate everybody. Good night, Jessica, Tessa, and Indigo. Butterfly Composer, I don't know your name. Emmy, Leah. I got your message, Leah, so I will check for the script. And the rest of you, I will see you all soon. Have a good night.